What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pro Polishers Academy. We help paint correctors like you turn your systems into consistency by moving you through the learning curves faster, utilizing formulas that work without fail. I'm Smitty, and I'll be your lead instructor. Let's get into it. In today's tech session call, we went over the importance of understanding the different paint hardnesses that you're going to run into while you're doing paint correction. And if you're new to the game, you especially need to know the difference so that you don't get yourself wrapped up in any situation working on vehicles that you don't have the ability to correct. Check out the call right here. So today we're going to be going over studying different paint types and understanding different paint hardnesses so you can know which demographic you choose to pursue. The main focal points of the average detailer in paint correction is usually machines, products, and pricing, but understanding paint hardnesses or not understanding them can have drastic effects on those main three focal points. So the machines and the pads that you focus on might not work on the paints that you're about to run into, or it could be too aggressive for those paints. So let's just say it might not work as far as pulling defects, and then it might be too aggressive if the paint is a softer paint. And then your pricing, on the other hand, we focus on, like I said, the products, the machines, the pricing. Your pricing can theoretically sound great, but if you don't know how long it's going to take you to produce that money once you actually start working on a particular vehicle, you might come to the conclusion that you can do a one-step polish for $300, but it didn't realize it would take you 3 days to finish that job with the harder paint. So your understanding of your paint types and these different hardnesses has a drastic effect on the whole operation. The advantages to understanding it, you can know which paints to avoid if your business model is about quantity over quality. So if you're focused on volume, high volume, getting as much as you can completed and making, the best impact possible, more like the Chick-fil-A way is, that's what I call it. If you're focused on getting them in, getting them out, and producing great results quickly, you knowing which paint hardnesses not to mess with for your business model is going to help your business thrive and keep your customers happy and have a really solid portfolio for you if you know what you're looking at, know what you're working on. So if you're interested in the quality work, you can highlight the vehicles that you know are tougher to work on so that you can command a higher price because you know how to complete the job. So if you're somebody who wants to work on, you're a boutique detailer and you only want to work on 1 or 2 vehicles a month and it's going to take you 2 weeks or the whole month to finish this one vehicle, you can go after that vehicle that's got the tougher paint that the ordinary detailer might run away from because you're going to produce a higher income from that vehicle if you're pricing it correctly, and you'll have the backup, the footage, the portfolio to show off that you know what you're doing. So and if you're new to the game, you can focus on paints that are medium to soft. This is another advantage. You can focus on those medium soft paints so that you don't get caught up in a situation that you can't correct. So using my situation, for example, when I stepped out and got my first dealership contract, I was charging $180 a vehicle, and I knew what I was doing. I just wanted to get as much volume as possible, and I knew I'd be able to run through these cars because, hey, it's just a dealership car, right? The very first vehicle that I got was a little Fiat, and I think, the Fiat 500, small ones, and white. And I knew it was going to take me 20-30 minutes to run through that vehicle, and it took me hours to finish up that little vehicle, man, because the paint was so rock hard. And I was honestly blown away. I was really questioning, what have I gotten myself into? I'd done the work working at the dealership for the dealer, but stepping out on my own, that very first car I got, man, it whooped me. And I was like, man, this is a small Fiat. What am I going to do when a giant Excursion comes in and it's black or whatever the case may be? But I just didn't understand paint hardness. I mean, I've worked on trucks that were easier than that little Fiat. So you just got to know what you're working on so that you can avoid those things. I think I pointed out that Fiat, and I might have pointed out 4 or 5 vehicles on that lot, and going for those easier ones or the ones I thought would be a little bit quicker to work on, and got myself in a conundrum because of that. So Some vehicles, another advantage, some vehicles produce the most amazing results possible with minimal effort. So you can identify which are in your area, and you can hone in on that demographic and dominate. So if we know that we have, let's just say we got a Corvette community here, and a bunch of C7s, a bunch of C8s. Of course, C8s are all over the place, but if the C7 produces such an awesome result for us, why not continue to chase after that? Because we know the paint hardness type, and we know that it's not too much work to get the job done. If we're doing two-step work, then it's nothing to get it done. If it was one-step work, that could be a different situation. But because we're doing that two-step work and we know how that finish is going to come out, we're going to go after those vehicle owners all the time. That's just one example. That's one of our favorite vehicles to do. A C7 always pops, and we know how that paint works. So if it was a tougher paint, I wouldn't mess with it. I wouldn't give it the time of day, to tell you the truth, because there's so many body lines. So when you become a specialist, your points of contact expand. So let's say you focus in on 1 to 3 particular vehicles that have large, passionate communities that take pride in what they own. So if you've only got a few supercars that you can market to, you don't want to worry about those, because even if you do blow those owners away, say you get them into your shop or you get them as clients, that community may not be large enough for you in your area to make a solid impact and create a reputation that precedes you. So the rest of those vehicles will come to you that are outside of that 1 to 3 particular make and models that you select to hone in on. The rest of those vehicles will come to you just based off the proof that they see from what you do on your typical vehicle, and because of that, those will be the crumbs that you work on, that you just pick up along the way. So those exotic cars, if you don't have a large demographic of those vehicle owners around you, don't chase after them. They're just going to be crumbs. So let's say you have, like I said, we've got the Corvettes around here. We know that they run in packs. We know that there are multiple Corvettes in multiple homes, right? So one homeowner might have 2 or 3 Corvettes. So let's go after something that's large enough for us to be able to predict how much money we're going to make, and we also can predict what the job will entail. So the hardest paint that I've worked on when it comes to a vet is that C4, and it's got that marine gel coat on it, or at least some of them do. So outside of that, the rest of them that I've worked on have been pretty easy. So just knowing this demographic allows me to hone in and become a specialist, and then your name starts to get passed around as a detailer, and then on top of that, everybody else who owns any other vehicle, they find out about you through these owners of these vehicles that you work on in particular, and they're going to come in, and you won't even be, they'll just be byproducts of what you're actually advertising and what you're actually trying to pull in. One of the disadvantages, so we're going to go through these disadvantages of not studying that paint hardness. You run the risk of potentially burning paint more often. So if you're working on soft paints and you're hitting them harder than necessary, thinking that they're going to be like that harder paint that you previously worked on because you just see all paint as equal, you can easily burn through, and you're going to do it a lot more often than one who understands what they're working on. So if you have a one-size-fit-all approach to your paint correction, you're going to have a lot of trouble with that, because every polish, every paint, every compound, every pad is not for every paint. So you're going to have a lot of vehicles coming in potentially if you've got the traffic, but then you're going to have a lot more losses than wins, or equal amount of losses to wins. And if you understand the type of paint you're working on, you'll have certain formulas for each one of these types of paints that you actually get a chance to put a machine on. So you don't want to be that guy that's out there burning up paint, and you've got the traffic and you've got the business coming in, but your batting average is low. So you definitely want to know how to handle that paint. So you can also underprice your work. Underpricing work is a major issue. I've had that situation occur plenty of times where I'm pricing vehicles a lot less than something a little bit larger, just because this vehicle's smaller. This one should be no problem, but that paint can be so tough that it'd be easier for me to do something twice the size of it with a different paint hardness on it. So underpricing, I mean, it can stop a lot. You can look. Sometimes we feel like we can look at a paint and say, "Oh, this is going to be a softer paint, or it's going to be a harder paint," and seems like, you know, once we start working, if we were right, it's like, I'm able to just look at this paint and see what's going on. But really, you don't know what you got until you put that machine on, until you've worked on a few of these vehicles. So you can easily short yourself, you know, 50% of the pay, because you're just going off of an eyeball. You haven't done any test spots yet. And I like to do multiple test spots. Do multiple test spots before you start charging or before you start pricing. And yeah, I see a lot of people go out of business because they're underpricing their work and they're getting hit with bad, hard paint back to back to back, and it ends up, you know, putting them out for the count, putting them down for the count. So another issue is with your cutting and proper finishing. So clearly, if a paint is harder, it can be harder to get those defects out, but polishing more often than not is going to be the biggest issue when it comes to almost any paint. So softer paints can easily mar up and haze during the polishing stage. You might have gotten those defects out with ease because the paint was so soft, but when it's time to polish, you can implement a marring or a haze in the paint because you're overworking it, because it doesn't take but so much polish to get that paint squared away and finished down. And then with harder paints, it can take a lot more work to remove the excess haze from the cutting stage. And the average detailer who's just getting into this thing, it's hard for them to identify a little bit of haze. Like they see that the paint is better than it was before they started, so they can't see that they might still have some compounding haze left behind underneath that harder paint. So yeah, it's a major disadvantage when you have that vehicle roll out and you can see a slight haze, or the customer can see a slight haze. I've had vehicles come back that were harder paints and I polished them. I did a Suburban one time. It was the last time this happened, but I did a Suburban, a 2020 Suburban, and it was hard paint. And when I polished it like I do anything else that wasn't as tough. And when I had it come back in about a month or two later for a maintenance wash, I could see that haze down in the valleys of some of those body lines. And I was thinking that, you know, that the actual paint correction wasn't legit. I'm like, is this even real? Is the haze just there and the polish is filling it in? No, it's me not polishing out that haze completely because I wasn't understanding those paint types. So yeah, definitely want to master your finishing work. Your medium paints are typically going to be somewhat easy to correct and or polish down, finish down, but that softer paint and that harder paint, from one extreme to another, those are typically going to be a fight whenever you are just getting into paint correction, or if you've been in it for a while and never have studied that paint hardness topic. So some tips to becoming a specialist with a particular vehicle is to, let's just say it doesn't have to be a particular make or model. You can just go after a popular color. This creates the opportunity to market to a very broad audience. If you want to hear the rest of that call, join us in the Pro Polishers Academy. The link is in the description below. We've got access to all of our calls that we have in our archives, and you can listen whenever you get a chance to. And if you have time to get in there with us live, you can do so every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You've also got access to us in our 24/7 Discord chat. So if you ever need help with anything, somebody will get back with you as soon as possible to answer your questions. We've got members from all over the country, and our newest member is Soto from Kansas City, Missouri. So shout out to him. And guys, we'd love to have you join us and get in on this awesome community. We've got guys who've been in the game for a month, and we've got guys who've been in the game for decades. So everybody can help each other out and feed off of one another. And the part I love the most about the Academy is that you get to see how detailing works in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, outside of your backyard. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification for more videos just like this right here at the Pro Polishers Academy. That's it for today, guys. We'll see you next time. The paint's waiting on you. Peace.